The blood-soaked telegram trembled in Lila Vance's hands as she read the news that would forever change her life: her father murdered, her ranch seized, and her reputation tarnished by the wealthy cattle baron who'd orchestrated it all. Montana Territory, 1878, had never felt so cold and unforgiving as it did on that autumn morning. The journey west had been arduous, 3 weeks of hard travel from Boston, where she'd been finishing her education. Her black morning dress was travel-worn and dusty as she finally arrived in Silver Creek, a town that had once been home but now felt as foreign as the moon. She kept her head down as she walked the main street, feeling eyes upon her, hearing the whispers. "That's Vance's girl," someone muttered. "Poor thing doesn't know half of what her daddy did," another voice added. Lila quickened her pace, clutching her small valise tighter. Whatever rumors Harrison Blackwater had spread about her father had clearly taken root. Thomas Vance had been many things: stubborn, proud, sometimes difficult, but he was no thief, no rustler as the telegram had claimed he'd been branded before they hanged him. The Silver Dollar Inn loomed ahead, the only place in town likely to offer her a room now that her family home had been seized. As she approached the entrance, a group of men exited, their laughter cutting short as they spotted her. "Well, looky here," said the tallest of them, his breath reeking of whiskey despite the early hour. "If it ain't the rustler's daughter, all dressed up like a proper lady." Lila tried to step around them, but another man blocked her path. "Your daddy died swinging from a tree for stealing Blackwater cattle. What brings you back, hoping to collect what ain't yours? Please let me pass," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Maybe we should teach her the same lesson we taught her pa," one suggested, reaching for her arm. The click of her revolver being cocked froze the men in place. "You boys always did have trouble with your manners," came a deep voice from behind them. "Step aside and let the lady pass." The men turned, their expressions shifting from menace to caution. Lila peered around them to see a tall figure silhouetted against the late afternoon sun. Dust-covered and trail-worn, he stood with an easy confidence, his revolver held casually but with unmistakable purpose. "This ain't your business, Cooper," the tall man said, though he'd already backed up a step. "I'm making it my business, Daniels." The stranger stepped closer, his features coming into clearer view. Beneath the shadow of his wide-brimmed hat, Lila could see a strong jawline covered in several days' worth of stubble and eyes the color of a summer storm. "Miss Vance just lost her father. Show some respect or I'll help you find yours." His tone left no room for argument. The men shuffled aside, muttering under their breath but clearly unwilling to challenge him further. As Lila passed, the tall one spat on the ground near her skirts. "You'll learn soon enough what kind of man your father really was." The stranger named Cooper stepped closer to her, shielding her from the men. "May I escort you somewhere, Miss Vance?" Lila hesitated. This man knew her name, but she couldn't place him. "I was headed to the inn. I need lodging." "Mrs. Peterson won't rent to you," he said quietly. Blackwater's got the town in his pocket. Tears of frustration threatened, but Lila blinked them back. "Then where am I supposed to go? My home, I know." His expression softened. "I've got a place outside town. It's not much, but there's a spare room. It would be safe until we figure things out." Lila studied him more carefully. He appeared to be in his early 30s, tall and broad-shouldered, with a face that had seen its share of hardship but remained handsome despite, or perhaps because of the lines etched there by sun and experience. "Cole Easton," he said, touching the brim of his hat. "I worked for your father for 5 years before I started my own spread. He was a good man, Miss Vance, and what they're saying about him is a lie." Lila felt a rush of relief at his words. "You believe in his innocence." "I don't just believe it, I aim to prove it." He offered his arm. "My wagon's this way if you'll trust me." Trust was in short supply, but so were her options. She placed her hand on his arm. "Thank you, Mr. Easton." They walked in silence past the general store and the blacksmith shop. Lila felt the stares of townspeople boring into her back but kept her chin high. Cole's wagon was modest but well-maintained, hitched to 2 sturdy horses that looked like they could handle any terrain. As he helped her up to the seat, his hands steady and strong, she asked, "Why are you helping me?" You must know it's dangerous to oppose Harrison Blackwater. Cole's jaw tightened. I've got my reasons. He climbed up beside her and took the reins. Besides, your father would have done the same for me. The wagon pulled away from town, and Lila felt both relief and apprehension as Silver Creek receded behind them. The Montana landscape opened before them, vast and beautiful despite her circumstances, rolling hills giving way to distant mountains, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across fields of autumn golden grass. How long were you gone? Cole asked after they'd traveled in silence for a while. 4 years. Father sent me east to school after Mother died. Lila watched the landscape roll by. His letters became strange in recent months, worried. He mentioned trouble with Blackwater but never explained fully. Blackwater wanted your father's water rights. Ponderosa Creek runs through your property before it reaches Blackwater's. During the drought last summer, he tried to buy your father out. When Thomas refused, things got ugly. Ugly enough for murder, Lila's voice caught. Cole's hands tightened on the reins. Blackwater claimed your father rustled 50 head of cattle. Said he had witnesses who saw Thomas with the stolen herd. A posse was formed, led by Blackwater's foreman. They found your father at the north pasture. And they hanged him without a trial. Lila felt sick. They called it frontier justice. Sheriff Holden arrived too late to stop it. Cole glanced at her. I'm sorry you had to come home to this. The wagon crested a hill, revealing a modest homestead nestled in a protected valley, a sturdy log cabin with smoke curling from the chimney. A corral with several horses, a small barn, and beyond, a creek winding through a pasture where cattle grazed. It's not much compared to your father's ranch, Cole said as they approached, but it's mine free and clear. It's beautiful, Lila said honestly. After the hostility of town, the peaceful scene before her was a welcome sight. As they pulled up to the cabin, the door opened, and an older woman with silver-streaked dark hair emerged, wiping her hands on an apron. Cole Easton, you're late for supper again, she called, then stopped short when she saw Lila. Her expression softened immediately. Miss Vance, oh child. Mrs. Hudson was your father's housekeeper, Cole explained as he helped Lila down. When Blackwater took the ranch, she came to work for me. The older woman enveloped Lila in a warm embrace that smelled of fresh bread and clean linen. Your poor father, such a terrible thing. She pulled back, studying Lila's face. You look just like your mother. Lila felt her composure wavering at the kindness. Thank you for remembering her. Come inside, you must be exhausted, and I've got stew on the stove and fresh bread just out of the oven. The cabin's interior was simple but comfortable, a large main room with a stone fireplace, sturdy wooden furniture, shelves lined with books, and a few modest decorations that spoke of a man who valued function over appearance but wasn't without appreciation for beauty. Over supper, Mrs. Hudson filled in more details about the events leading to Thomas Vance's death. Blackwater had indeed coveted the water rights, but there was more. Your father found something on his land, Mrs. Hudson said, lowering her voice though there was no one else to hear. Something that made Blackwater desperate to possess the property. What was it? Lila asked. Mrs. Hudson shook her head. He never told me directly, just said it could change everything if handled properly. She glanced at Cole. He took Cole riding up to the North Ridge several times in those last weeks. Cole nodded slowly. He showed me some rock formations, said they were important, but he wanted a proper assessment before making any claims. You think he found gold? Lila asked. Could be, or silver. There have been strikes all through these mountains. Cole's expression was thoughtful. Whatever it was, he was protecting it. That's why he wouldn't sell, drought or no drought. After supper, Mrs. Hudson showed Lila to a small but clean bedroom at the back of the cabin. This was my son's room when he visited, she explained. He's off working the railroad now. Left alone, Lila finally allowed her tears to fall. She wept for her father, for the injustice of his death, for the home that had been stolen, and for the shame that had been unfairly attached to his name. She was still crying when a soft knock came at her door. Miss Vance. Cole's voice was gentle. I've brought you some fresh water. She hastily wiped her face and opened the door. Cole stood holding a pitcher and basin, but his expression changed when he saw her tear-streaked face. "I'm sorry," she said, embarrassed. "I didn't mean to. Don't apologize." He set the water down on the dresser. "You have every right to your grief." "It's not just grief," she admitted, her voice breaking. "It's shame. They've made his name our name synonymous with thievery. Everyone in town believes it. I saw it in their eyes." "I know what that feels like," Cole said quietly. "To have people look at you and see only what they've been told to see." Something in his tone made her look more closely at him. "You've experienced this before," he hesitated, then nodded. "In another life, another territory." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Miss Vance, Lila, I want you to know something. I'm going to help you clear your father's name and get your ranch back, whatever it takes." "Why would you risk so much for me, for us?" Cole's eyes held her steadily. "Because your father gave me a chance when no one else would, and because what Blackwater did." He stopped, seeming to choose his words carefully. "What he did to your father, to you it's unforgivable." After he left, Lila stood at the small window, looking out at the star-filled Montana sky, wondering what secrets lay behind Cole Easton's storm-gray eyes, and what connection he truly had to her father's fate. Morning came with the scent of coffee and the sounds of ranch life already in motion. Lila dressed in the one spare outfit she'd packed, a simple blue dress that had seen better days, and joined Mrs. Hudson in the kitchen. "Cole's been up since before dawn," the older woman said, handing Lila a steaming cup. "That man works harder than any 3 ranch hands put together." Through the window, Lila could see him in the corral, working with a spirited chestnut horse that seemed determined to unseat him. His movements were fluid and confident, responding to the animal's attempts with calm authority rather than force. "He has a way with horses," Mrs. Hudson observed. "Your father always said Cole could gentle the wildest Mustang with just patience and respect." "How did my father come to hire him?" Lila asked, watching as the horse finally settled, allowing Cole to guide it around the corral. Mrs. Hudson busied herself with breakfast preparations. "He showed up 5 years ago looking for work. No references, no background to speak of, but your father hired him anyway. Said he had honest eyes." She cracked eggs into a bowl. "Within a year, Cole was his foreman. When Cole decided to start his own small spread 2 years ago, your father helped him secure this land. So they were close as your father got to anyone after your mother passed." Mrs. Hudson gave her a significant look. He trusted Cole completely. After breakfast, Cole offered to take Lila to her father's grave. "It's on your property, our property," he corrected himself. "Blackwater wouldn't allow your father to be buried in the town cemetery, said a rustler didn't deserve consecrated ground." The ride to the Vance ranch took them through breathtaking country rolling meadows giving way to stands of pine and aspen, streams cutting through rocky outcroppings, and always the distant mountains standing sentinel. Despite her grief, Lila couldn't help but be moved by the beauty of her homeland. They skirted the main ranch buildings, Cole explaining that Blackwater had men stationed there. Instead, they rode to a small rise overlooking the valley where the ranch lay. A single grave marked by a wooden cross stood beneath a large cottonwood tree. Lila dismounted and approached slowly, her heart aching at the simplicity of it. No headstone, no proper marker for the man who had built one of the finest ranches in the territory. "Mrs. Hudson and I buried him," Cole said quietly, standing behind her. "We said the proper words. It was the best we could do." Lila knelt by the grave, placing her hand on the freshly turned earth. "I'll make this right, Father," she whispered. "I promise you." As she stood, she noticed horsemen approaching from the direction of the ranch house. "Cole, I see them." His voice was calm, but he moved his horse between Lila and the oncoming riders. "Stay behind me." 4 men approached, led by a sleek-looking man in expensive clothes and a custom hat. Unlike his dust-covered companions, he appeared as though he'd just stepped out of a fine Eastern establishment. "That's Harrison Blackwater," Cole murmured. "The one on his right is Jeremiah Pike, his foreman. The other 2 are hired guns." Blackwater reined his horse to a stop several yards away, studying them with cold calculation. He was perhaps 50, with silver-streaked dark hair and the weathered face of a man who'd spent years in the West, despite his fine attire. "Trespassing on private property is a serious offense, Easton," he called, "though I shouldn't be surprised to find you in such company." His gaze shifted to Lila, a small smile playing at his lips. "Miss Vance, I presume, my condolences on your father's unfortunate end." The casual cruelty of his words made Lila's blood boil. "You murdered him," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the space between them. Blackwater's smile didn't falter. "Your father was caught red-handed stealing my cattle. The men who found him merely carried out justice, as is sometimes necessary in these wild parts where law is distant." "That's a lie," Cole said, his hand resting casually near his holstered revolver. "Thomas Vance never stole anything in his life." "The evidence suggests otherwise," Blackwater replied smoothly, "but I didn't come to debate the past. I came to make Miss Vance an offer." He addressed Lila directly now. "I understand you've returned to claim what you believe is yours. While the ranch legally reverted to me as compensation for the stolen cattle, I'm not without compassion." "What sort of offer?" Lila asked warily. $500. "A generous sum that would allow you to return east and restart your life without the unpleasantness of your father's reputation following you." "The ranch is worth 20 times that amount," Cole interjected. "The land, perhaps, but considering the circumstances," Blackwater spread his hands in a gesture of false generosity, "it's more than fair." "And if I refuse?" Lila asked. Blackwater's smile thinned. "Then I'm afraid you'll leave Montana Territory with nothing but the clothes on your back and the stain of your father's crimes marking your name wherever you go." "My father committed no crime. You framed him so you could steal his land." The cattle baron's expression hardened. "Careful, Miss Vance. Slander is also an offense in this territory," he nodded to his men. "I'll give you 2 days to consider my offer. After that, it's withdrawn permanently." He turned his horse. "Oh, and Easton harboring this young woman puts you directly at odds with me. I'd reconsider that position if I were you." They watched as the 4 riders departed, heading back toward the main ranch buildings. "He's afraid," Cole said once they were out of earshot. "He knows we could cause trouble for him." "How? It's his word against ours, and he clearly has the town believing his version of events." Cole turned to her, his expression intense. "Because we know where to look for the truth. Your father told me where he kept his papers, including records of what he found on the North Ridge. Blackwater doesn't know that." Hope flickered within Lila. "Where are they?" "There's a cave in the hills above the north pasture. Your father used it as a natural cold storage in summer, but it also has a hidden compartment where he kept important documents." Cole checked to ensure Blackwater's men were truly gone. "We need to retrieve those papers before Blackwater realizes they exist." They rode for almost an hour, following game trails and shallow streambeds to avoid being spotted by Blackwater's men. The terrain grew increasingly rugged as they climbed into the hills that formed the northern boundary of the Vance property. "There," Cole finally said, pointing to a rocky outcropping partially hidden by pine trees. "The entrance is behind those boulders." The cave entrance was narrow but opened into a surprisingly large chamber. Sunlight filtered through a natural chimney in the rock ceiling, providing enough illumination to see by. At the back, a stone shelf held preserves and other foodstuffs. "The compartment is here," Cole said, moving to what appeared to be a solid rock wall. He pressed against a specific spot, and a section of the wall shifted, revealing a small space containing a metal strongbox. Cole withdrew it carefully. "Your father showed me this place shortly before he died. Said if anything happened to him, I should make sure you got what was inside." Lila took the box with trembling hands. It was locked, but a small key hung on a leather cord around Cole's neck. "He gave me this," he explained, removing it and handing it to her. "Said I'd know when to use it." The key fit perfectly. Inside the box were several folded documents, a leather pouch, and a journal bound in worn leather. Lila opened the journal first, recognizing her father's neat, precise handwriting. "It's dated just 3 weeks before his death," she said, scanning the pages. He writes about discovering a silver vein in the North Ridge. Based on his preliminary tests, he believed it could be one of the richest strikes in the territory. That explains Blackwater's determination to get your land, Cole said grimly. Lila continued reading. There's more. He suspected Blackwater of damming Ponderosa Creek upstream on public land to force him to sell during the drought. He gathered evidence and was preparing to take it to the territorial governor. She unfolded one of the documents, a survey map with detailed notations about water rights and property boundaries. Another document contained sworn statements from 3 local ranchers who had witnessed Blackwater's men constructing the illegal dam. This is why they killed him, Lila whispered. Not just for the silver, but because he was going to expose Blackwater's illegal activities. And this is how we clear his name, Cole said, a fierce determination in his eyes. The leather pouch contained several silver ore samples, each labeled with precise locations. One final document caught Lila's attention, her father's will, properly witnessed and notarized. He left everything to me, she said, reading through it. And he named you as executor, Cole. He trusted you to see his wishes carried out. Something flashed across Cole's face, surprise, followed by a deeper emotion Lila couldn't quite read. I didn't know, he said quietly. He never told me that part. Before Lila could respond, a sound from outside the cave froze them both. The unmistakable click of a rifle being cocked echoed in the stillness. Come out nice and slow, called a rough voice. Hands where we can see them. Cole moved to the cave entrance, positioning himself to block Lila from view. Stay behind me, he whispered. If anything happens, take the papers and run deeper into the cave. There's another exit that leads up to the ridge. I won't leave you, she protested. You have to. These papers are the only chance to clear your father's name. His eyes met hers, intense and unwavering. Promise me. Reluctantly, she nodded, clutching the documents and the journal to her chest. Cole stepped outside, his hands raised to shoulder height. Pike, fancy meeting you here. Lila peered around the cave entrance. Jeremiah Pike, Blackwater's foreman, sat on his horse with a rifle trained on Cole. 2 other men flanked him, their guns also drawn. Blackwater figured you might lead us to something interesting, Pike said, his voice a lazy drawl that did nothing to mask the threat behind it. Looks like he was right. Where's the girl? Gone. I sent her back to my place while I checked the cave. Cole's voice was calm, conversational. Nothing here but some old preserves and jerky. Pike's eyes narrowed. You're lying. We tracked 2 horses. Mine and a pack horse for carrying supplies. Search the cave, Pike ordered one of his men. As the man dismounted, Cole moved with unexpected speed. In one fluid motion, he drew his revolver and fired, hitting the ground in front of the approaching man's feet. The man stumbled back in surprise. Next one won't miss, Cole warned, his gun now trained on Pike. Ride away now and we can all pretend this never happened, Pike laughed, a cold sound without humor. 3 guns against 1 Easton, those aren't odds I'd bet on. Maybe not, came a new voice from the ridge above them, but how about 3 against 3? All eyes turned to the ridge where Sheriff Holden sat astride his horse, his deputy beside him. Both had rifles aimed at Pike and his men. Lower your weapons, boys, the sheriff called, unless you're eager to explain to Blackwater why you got his foreman killed over a cave full of preserves. Pike's face contorted with rage, but he slowly lowered his rifle. His men followed suit. This isn't over, Easton, he spat. Actually, I think it is, Sheriff Holden said, guiding his horse down to join them. Miss Vance, you can come out now. I believe you have something that interests me greatly. Lila emerged cautiously, still holding the documents. Sheriff Holden, how did you know we were here? Mrs. Hudson sent word to my office that Blackwater's men were tracking you. He dismounted, approaching her with respect. I've had my suspicions about Thomas Vance's death from the beginning, but Blackwater's influence in these parts made investigating difficult. He nodded at the papers in her hands. Those might change things. As Pike and his men reluctantly departed under the deputy's watchful eye, Lila, Cole, and the sheriff sat in the shade of the pine trees, going through the evidence Thomas Vance had collected. This is enough to bring charges against Blackwater, Sheriff Holden said after reviewing everything. Water theft is a serious crime in the territory, and these sworn statements from neighboring ranchers about the illegal dam are damning. He looked at the will. And this proves the ranch legally belongs to you, Miss Vance, not Blackwater. What about clearing my father's name? Lila asked. Everyone believes he was a rustler. These documents help there too. They establish motive for Blackwater to frame your father. The sheriff tucked the papers carefully into his saddlebag. I'll ride to Helena tomorrow to present this to the territorial judge. With luck, we'll have a warrant for Blackwater's arrest within the week. After the sheriff departed, promising to send men to protect Cole's ranch until the matter was resolved, Lila and Cole remained at the cave, watching the sun begin its descent toward the western mountains. I don't know how to thank you, Lila said softly. You risked everything to help me. Cole was quiet for a moment, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon. I owed your father a debt I could never repay, he finally said, but it's more than that. He turned to her, his expression open and vulnerable in a way she hadn't seen before. When I came to Montana, I was running from a past I'm not proud of. Your father saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. He gave me a chance to be a better man. What happened before you came here? Lila asked gently. Cole took a deep breath. I rode with a gang in Wyoming. We robbed stagecoaches, mostly. I was young and foolish, thought it was all adventure until a guard was shot during a robbery. His voice grew hoarse. I turned myself in, testified against the others. Served 3 years in prison. When I got out, no one would hire me except your father. Lila studied his face, seeing the shame and regret etched there. Is that why you understood when I spoke of feeling ashamed? Because you know what it's like to have people judge you for something in your past? Yes, his eyes met hers. The difference is I earned my shame. You and your father didn't. I don't think you should be ashamed anymore either, she said, reaching for his hand. The man who helped me, who risked his life to clear my father's name, that's who you really are, Cole. That's what matters. His fingers tightened around hers. When you spoke of your shame last night, he said softly, I wanted to tell you then you'll never have reason to be ashamed with me. I see you, Lila Vance, not what others say about you, but who you truly are. The sincerity in his voice made her heart beat faster. For the first time since receiving that terrible telegram, Lila felt something beyond grief and anger, a flicker of possibility, of future. We should head back, Cole said, though he made no move to release her hand. Mrs. Hudson will be worried. They rode side by side as the Montana sunset painted the landscape in golds and purples. The beauty of it struck Lila anew, this land that her father had loved, that had become Cole's home, and that might yet be her future. What will you do when this is over? Cole asked as they neared his homestead. Will you stay in Montana? I think I must, she replied. This is my heritage, my home. She glanced at him. What about you? A small smile touched his lips. I'm not going anywhere. This land gets in your blood. Mrs. Hudson greeted them with relief and hot food. After supper, she retired early, leaving Cole and Lila sitting by the fire. They spoke late into the night of her life in Boston, of his dreams for his small ranch, of her father's kindness, and of the future that might await once Blackwater faced justice. The week that followed brought dramatic changes. True to his word, Sheriff Holden returned with a warrant for Harrison Blackwater's arrest on charges of water theft, conspiracy, and murder. When Blackwater's men realized the tide had turned, most abandoned him rather than face charges themselves. Pike attempted to flee the territory, but was apprehended at the Dakota border. In a crowded courtroom in Helena, Lila testified about her father's discovery of the silver vein and his evidence against Blackwater. Cole spoke of Thomas Vance's character and the conversations they'd had in the weeks before his death. 3 neighboring ranchers confirmed they had witnessed Blackwater's illegal dam and had been threatened into silence. The verdict was decisive. Blackwater received a 20-year sentence for his crimes. The Vance Ranch was officially returned to Lila, along with compensation for the months it had been wrongfully held. Most importantly, Thomas Vance's name was cleared publicly, his reputation restored. On a clear spring morning, nearly a year after her return to Montana, Lila stood on the porch of the rebuilt ranch house, watching as Cole rode in from checking the northern pastures. In the months since the trial, he had divided his time between his own small spread and helping Lila restore her father's ranch to its former prosperity. Their relationship had deepened gradually, built on mutual respect, shared grief, and eventually, love that had grown so naturally neither could pinpoint when friendship had transformed into something more profound. Cole dismounted, removing his hat as he approached the porch. His face, once guarded and haunted, now more often showed the smile that never failed to warm her heart. "The spring calves are doing well," he reported, leaning against the porch railing. "And I checked the silver mine. The latest assay results were right, it's even richer than your father thought." "He would be pleased," Lila said, moving to stand beside him. "Not just about the silver, but about everything the ranch thriving, his name restored." She looked up at Cole. "And about us." Cole's expression softened. "I like to think so." He took her hand, running his thumb across the simple gold band he'd placed there just 2 months prior in a small ceremony attended by Mrs. Hudson, Sheriff Holden, and the handful of loyal hands who had returned to work the Vance ranch. "I've been thinking," he said, drawing her closer, "about combining our operations officially. The Easton Vance ranch has a nice sound to it." "It does," she agreed, leaning against his solid warmth. "Though I was thinking Vance Easton might flow better," he laughed, the sound echoing across the yard. "Always negotiating, Mrs. Easton." "You wouldn't have me any other way, Mr. Easton." His arms tightened around her. "No, I wouldn't. I love you exactly as you are, stubborn, proud, and brave beyond measure." As they stood together, looking out over the land that had seen so much pain and now promised so much joy, Lila thought of how far they had both come from that first meeting outside the Silver Dollar Inn. Two people carrying different wounds, different shames, who had found in each other not just healing but a future neither had dared imagine. "We should ride up to the North Ridge tomorrow," Cole suggested. "The wildflowers are starting to bloom." "Your father always said it was the most beautiful spot on the ranch in springtime." "I'd like that," Lila said, turning in his arms to face him. "We could take a picnic, make a day of it." "And perhaps discuss names," Cole added, his hand gently touching her stomach where their child grew, still their secret for a few more weeks until she was ready to share the news. Lila smiled, joy filling her heart. "I was thinking Thomas for a boy, or maybe Eliza for a girl after my mother." "Perfect," Cole agreed, lowering his head to kiss her softly. "Absolutely perfect." As the Montana sun cast its golden light across the land that was their legacy and their future, Lila knew that the shame that had once threatened to define her had been transformed, not forgotten, but woven into the stronger fabric of who they had become together. Two souls who had found in each other the courage to face their pasts and the love to build a future neither could have imagined alone.